There is a strange kind of grief that does not look like grief at first. It is not about someone you lost after knowing them. It is about someone you never met. A person who shaped your life anyway. A name in stories. A face in photos. A gap in the family table that you can still feel. And the longer you live, the more you wonder what was carried forward and what vanished. Context matters because we tend to think of memory as a private thing. Something inside your head. Something that fades. But memory is also a shared structure. It lives in letters and objects and habits and jokes. It lives in the way a family tells the same story every holiday. It lives in the way a culture keeps certain songs alive. When those things disappear, we do not just lose information. We lose a way of being human. So when people hear about using AI to speak with a voice from the past, the reaction is often mixed. Some feel wonder. Some feel discomfort. Some feel fear. And beneath all of it is a question we do not say out loud. Are we allowed to reach across time like this? Or is that a kind of disrespect? The surface insight is that AI can act like a bridge for memory. Not a bridge that brings someone back fully. But a bridge that lets you approach their traces in a new way. When a person leaves behind writing letters, notes, lectures, essays, they leave behind patterns. Favorite words. Repeated worries. Specific ways of framing the world. Those patterns can be learned and reflected back. And when you meet that reflection, you do not only learn about the past. You learn about yourself. Because the questions you ask reveal what you are hungry for. You ask about dreams because you want to know what hope looked like. You ask about anxiety because you want to know what fear looked like. You ask about love and work and family because you want to locate your own life inside a longer story. The hidden assumption is that such a tool is either a resurrection or a fake. Either it is the person or it is meaningless. But human experience rarely fits into that clean binary. A photo is not your grandmother. A voice recording is not your friend. A diary is not your father. And yet these things can still move you deeply. They can still teach you. They can still connect you. The value is not in pretending they are fully alive again. The value is in the interaction. The encounter. The way the living person changes when they meet the trace. This is why it can feel like time travel. Not because the past becomes present, but because you step into the past for a moment. You visit a mind at different points in life. You do not bring the person forward. You go back. And that shift matters. It changes the emotional tone. It becomes less about ownership and more about listening. Less about taking and more about learning. Insight 3 is about the limits of representation. No depiction contains a whole person. People are too big. Too inconsistent. Too weird. You can capture someone laughing one day and crying the next. You can capture their courage in one letter and their pettiness in another. Any single portrait becomes a reduction. Even a long collection is still partial. And that limit is not a failure. It is the nature of memory. We know each other through fragments. Through moments. Through stories we keep telling. The danger is when we forget it is fragments and start treating the fragment as the whole. That is when a tool becomes a trap. You might begin to think you have met the person when you have met only an echo. Reframing helps here. Instead of calling it bringing someone back, you can call it a new way of visiting their legacy. A new doorway into a body of work. A new way to explore what was left behind. The tool becomes like a museum guide that answers your questions. Or like a conversation starter that pulls you into reading the original letters with more care. It becomes a prompt for imagination. And that is important because imagination is already how we meet the dead. We imagine what they would say. We imagine what they feared. We imagine what they would. Think of us now. We do this quietly all the time. AI does not create this need. It simply gives it shape. And by giving it shape, it also forces a responsibility. You must remember that the shape is not the person. It is a model built from traces. It is one perspective of a life, not a full life. Application to daily life can begin in small ways. Many people have boxes of family papers, old emails, voice messages, photos on a hard drive. Most of it sits untouched because the pain is sharp or the time feels too busy. But what if memory work became a gentle practice? One evening you open one letter. You read one page. You write down one line that surprises you. You ask one question you wish you could have asked. Not because you think you will get a perfect answer, but because the act of asking makes you more present to your own life. Another example is cultural memory. Languages disappear. Local stories disappear. Traditions thin out. When that happens, people feel untethered without knowing why. A tool that helps animate old texts could help people re-engage with their own history. Not as a museum, but as a living conversation. But again, the key is humility. You cannot reduce a culture to a chatbot. You cannot reduce a person to an imitation. You can only open a door to deeper engagement. Optional deepening comes when we think about what it means to be more than a body. People leave impressions. They leave patterns of care. They leave unfinished projects. They leave questions. Sometimes the most human part of someone is not what they achieved, but what they struggled with. The stress of trying to keep something afloat. The fear of being a new parent. The quiet effort of making art while life presses in. When you meet those struggles across time, you may feel less alone. You may stop idolizing the past and start relating to it. You may also feel a new duty to carry something forward. Not by copying a life, but by honoring its values. The final layer is about how we treat memory in an age of easy simulation. We can now generate voices, images, words at speed. This can cheapen meaning if we treat it like entertainment. It can also deepen meaning if we treat it like remembrance. The difference is the stance of the living person. Are you using the tool to avoid grief or to engage with it? Are you using it to escape your life or to understand your roots? Are you using it to replace relationships or to strengthen your capacity to value real people while they are here? Because that may be the quiet gift of this kind of project. It reminds you that everyone you love is leaving traces right now. In texts. In notes. In small acts. In the way they speak. And one day those traces may be all you have. So the question becomes not only what can we rebuild, but what are we preserving today while people are still alive? So the calm question that remains is, if AI can help you visit a legacy without pretending it replaces a person, what kind of legacy are you building in your own daily words and actions that someone might one day want to visit?